Hello, folks, and welcome back to the Crypto Byte. Today, we're going to talk about Dogecoin, which is added $7 billion to its market cap in just the last week, up about 150%. Is it time to buy it? Is it time to short it? We're going to talk about all that and much more. Monty, any thoughts you want to start off with Dogecoin here today?
That's the major question, CJ. Are we buying here or are we shorting? Because it has made a tremendous move in the midst of a historic bear market, right? Us crypto traders, we are opportunists. We are like, wherever there's a brief amount of opportunity, we'll sniff it out, find it, try and trade it. That's what's happening with Dogecoin, right? It started to move. All those speculators hopped on board, and that thing continued to grind higher. Outperformed the rest of the market substantially, staggered a little bit yesterday, but today it looks like it wants to keep going despite the fact that Bitcoin looks weak and despite the fact that, we have things like the DXY climbing higher. So that really is the question. Should we be buying? Should we be shorting? And hopefully by the end of this episode, you'll have a better idea of, how you want to be positioned in Dogecoin. And I think the best way to do that, CJ, go through some historic examples. Not the first time we've seen a Dogecoin pump quite like this, but perhaps looking back to the past and seeing what has happened following moves like this can give us some insight into what we may see here in the coming days to weeks. So without further ado, anything you would like to start off with from a charting or narrative perspective?
Yeah, first of all, if we've learned anything from the 90% of case studies of these boom and bust reflexive trends in crypto, is that they nearly always will end up where the initial move had begun. I think there's an 80% probability, maybe even 90% probability that Doge is going back to 6 cents, will fall 40 or 50% from its current prices. But we definitely could have one more leg up in the interim. We've already gone up 150%, which in these market conditions, I think is a lot to ask. I like to compare it to historic pumps. Over the last couple of weeks, if you could enable screen sharing, please. We've studied a lot of boom and bust cycles. Specifically, ZIL was a very interesting one, as well as Luna Classic. So I want to show a Luna Classic chart here, because that's one that was a really optimal short. So once you have that break in bullish market structure after a full-on parabola, where a lot of liquidations occur, and then you have shorts covering, you have late longs buying the dip. That's when you'll typically get your final short squeeze with that lower high. That is the optimal short entry that I'm looking for to short Dogecoin. I don't think we've seen it yet. And my concern from a short perspective is that we are still right here in terms of Dogecoin, because when you look at Doge, especially on like the 15-minute or 1 hour, it still looks quite firm. We still are making higher lows here, although we have had a little bit of break in market structure. So basically what the plan is for me, what I'm looking at in terms of long trades, you have a defined invalidation. So I look for longs as this accumulation period continues. Look for longs up to new highs. With a break below this level, you're wrong, and that we're probably going to see further continued sell pressure, in which case I would then look for the reaction rally, which then has a much higher likelihood of putting in the lower high, in which case that's when I flip short and look for downside price action going back to 6 cents. So that's basically the plan for Dogecoin, but you can see how there are clear points of invalidation, whether you want to take a long or a short. For instance, if you want to take a short, invalidation is really clear above 14 cents. If you want to take a long, invalidation is very clear below 11.3 cents there. So that's my plan for Doge. Last thing I'll touch on in terms of SHIB is just that it looks very kind of toppy, very similar to this picture we were talking about in Luna Classic. This short squeeze higher and the final lower high on the right shoulder looks like it's really come to fruition. Plus, we had bearish news around Russia this morning, as well as wheat prices going up 6%. We don't really know what that means for inflation just yet, but it can't be anything too promising. So looking for this pump to continue for a little bit in the short term, but once we're looking for weakness, hammer it down to a short back to where the initial move began.
Yeah. And in terms of historical examples, I think there are plenty throughout the Dogecoin and SHIB token, instance in their history where we've seen similar moves. Of course, market structure was different during these periods of time, but look at this move here in April. This is something I could see plausibly playing out here with Dogecoin. We made this massive move up just like we did in the last 3 days here. The volume peaked on the, peak candle here. Ultimately, we saw some slight profit taking, but you can see that like this bearish volume here was not substantial. And then once we climbed higher, right, the bearish volume got even less. So there were less people. No one was really selling this. Any negative price action was coming from, just some brief profit taking. Of course, we did get this sharp move down, which if you were, shorting after this break in market structure, that would have been a great opportunity. But clearly, Doge continued to climb higher. This was in, however, May. We are in a much, much different situation than we were in May. And let's go back further. Right? These two pumps, similar, right? And volume was a great kind of leading indicator in many ways. But again, if you look at the overall structure of crypto during this time, if we add Bitcoin to this chart, Bitcoin was doing something much different than what it was doing, now. Obviously underperforming tremendously relative to Doge. And it's hard to tell, exactly. That's kind of pointless, but basically, we had Bitcoin performing very well during that period of time. That led to some positive speculation into Doge. Now we are in a very different boat, right? We have overwhelmingly negative macro conditions. We had this pump peak in volume. Then we saw some profit taking. Next thing I'm looking for here is if we get a day of bearish price action or another kind of doji candle here, or a spinning top candle, whichever you prefer to call it. If we get another one of those following today and we see more bearish volume, we see an uptick in this bearish volume, that to me would increase my conviction that this move is going to be retraced. However, in the meantime, as you can see, price still grinding higher here, despite the fact that the rest of the market is looking weak. So what I think may have possibly occurred here and is kind of maybe skewing price a little bit is, obviously these wicks are vicious. I mean, that is a substantial move in just the wick alone. But in this candle here, I think there were some traders that were lucky enough to paint the top with their shorts, right? Make a ton of money on the way back down here, and now are covering their shorts as the market shows signs of indecision. So it's not like we're necessarily seeing genuine buy pressure coming in, right? It's not like we're seeing people firing up their Binance US or Coinbase and clicking buy on Doge. That doesn't seem to be the case. This is much more propelled by the perpetual futures market. And thus, I think we need to consider these moves as perhaps short covering rallies. That being said, from a historical perspective, CJ, we've seen Doge continue to run into weak markets, continue to make moves after reaching a high. I'm being patient with this one here because I think that some of these shorts can take some profit here, allow this one to move. But ultimately, I want to see more bearish volume before I'm ready to write this off as a total reversal. This thing could totally continue to climb higher. We've seen it in the past. Watch today's volume, because if we see a continuation of this bullish volume and we see it start to close in on the amount of bearish volume we saw yesterday, then you have the indication that it is more than just short covering, right? If this bullish volume exceeds yesterday's bearish volume, then that tells us that we have some genuine positive speculation coming in, whether it be spot buying or future speculation to the upside. So volume is one of the few leading indicators and one that I'm going to be watching closely. Last thing I'll say, from an hourly chart perspective, CJ, you're right. We got this kind of wedge forming here where price is kind of ascending a little bit, but also we have this structure kind of breaking a little bit here. Watch volume. Again, volume is one of the few leading indicators. Seeing some strong bearish volume here right now, but I personally think that's the result of traders, that were trying to paint this top with some shorts, taking some profit here. So be patient with this one throughout the day. Keep watching Bitcoin, because I think as Bitcoin continues to turn down, and we see resilience from Doge, that is worth mentioning. Now, looking at this Doge chart, right, still looks very weak to me from just like a technical perspective. We have this trend forming here, and unless we get above that level, right, unless we get above this trend line that's forming, you can see sell pressure has come in at this level pretty heavily each time we've come to retest it. So a break above this level, I reconsider my short bias and, continue playing this to the long side, because we've seen the fact that the market can remain irrational for a very long time, especially when it comes to some of these meme coins. So this right here, this downward sloping trend line for me is really everything. As long as we're below this, I'm short. Breaking above it, I'm considering getting back long, because we've seen these things continue to run. So those are my thoughts on Doge. It was an awesome weekend. Had a great time chasing the dogs around the yard, but ready to put that capital to work elsewhere and, keep trading those assets this week, CJ. So I think it's going to be a great week. And yeah, pass it back to you.
Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this content today as well. A lot of money is going to be made in Doge, whether it be trading to the upside or to the downside here. But I still hold firm with the conviction that we're going back to 6 cents within the next month or two. I think that is somewhat inevitable if we've learned anything from these reflexive boom and bust periods throughout crypto. But
absolutely. And one thing I would like to say, if you're not yet a member, definitely check out our crypto community. We have a full crypto charting service. We have members that hang out there every day, share their insights, and also CJ and myself post insights as well. In fact, CJ posted one for SHIB, a bullish trade insight for both SHIB and Doge, and of course, those came to fruition. So, obviously some very, very profitable trades here in our insights, and also some great conversation being had always in the chat, as well as news being shared, active watch list, full charting. We'd love to have you guys on the platform, because the more the merrier. And the more people that hop on those trades with us, it really feels good to see people making money on some of our insights. And yeah, we appreciate it. So like CJ said, please like and subscribe. Really helps out the channel. And hopefully we'll see you guys over in the crypto chat. Have a great rest of your week and take care.